Hello, everyone. Welcome to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And on today's show, I have Tanya V. And today's subject is self-awareness versus unawareness in dating. This is a topical conversation about the ups and downs of dating. Whether you're 18 or 80 years old, you have a story to tell. And the main theme of this podcast is it's just a conversation, no judgment. Tanya, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. So, if you could start off with what is being self-aware versus unaware, let's start that conversation going, and then we could pick it up from there. Because this is a an interesting topic coming from you, who is a coach, who eventually we think is going to be on Oprah probably within a couple of weeks or a month. No, but being serious, yeah, talk more about that. Like, how did you come up with this idea of of self-awareness versus unawareness, if that's a
Well,
word?
yes. Well, first of all, let me say that if Oprah comes calling, I will gladly be on her show or on whatever she wants me to be on. Well, no, I guess I read a lot of books. Some of them are on relationships, some of them are on spiritual development, personal development, and self awareness is a common theme. And really, what self awareness is knowing yourself, right?
Mm,
Knowing yourself, knowing kind of your triggers, especially in a relationship, and knowing how to communicate those as best as you can in order to handle them when they come up. In dating, I'm sure it's unintentional when we get triggered by what somebody says or what somebody does. But if we have the self awareness to know, okay, this is triggering maybe, say, a childhood wound or an old wound, then we can bring that awareness to the situation and then hopefully deal with it in as skillfully a way as possible.
so it could be, like I said, it could be triggered by something that we might say to them that maybe we're unaware of, that could trigger either them being more open or maybe more closed off. It could.
Well, yeah, well, let me see if I can think of an example, a
Yeah.
personal example. So let's see. Let's say someone, okay, not me, let's say someone else has
Gotcha.
an old wound of abandonment, like from childhood. Maybe they felt abandoned or neglected by their parents. So in a relationship, sometimes the other person, not knowingly, presumably, will do something or can do something that triggers that feeling of being abandoned. So
Right.
first of all, it takes self-awareness to know that there is a wound like that. So because when you're not aware of the wounds, you end up recreating the same situation or the same relationship over and over again. Because in psychology, it's believed that you do that to try to heal an old wound. So
So
once
that
you
means
become,
you're
yeah.
still going on with the same. So in other words, you're still triggering the same person that you're going to, you're picking the same type of person again and again and again. It
Yeah,
okay.
possibly, or recreating the same situation again. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist,
Right,
uh,
right,
but
right.
there is, the idea in psychology that yes, we create relationships in order to heal old wounds, or we create we're attracted to people who can recreate
Ah,
situations similar to maybe something we experienced in childhood in order to heal that wound. So, for example, maybe someone's attracted to emotionally unavailable people. On one level, you know that you're not really going to get your needs met if the other person is emotionally unavailable. But unconsciously, you might be attracted to someone like that because that's the type of person that was similar to your mother or your father. And there's an old wound that you experienced with one or both of your parents that you're trying to get healed.
wow. Okay. So wow, this is I think with abandonment, it could definitely be, for instance, like, I could think about that in a way where I grew up with my grandparents and not with my mom and dad. So for a while, I think that bothered me because I wasn't close to my brothers or sisters. But then I realized by being raised by my grandparents that I got lucky, because when my father and mother went through a divorce, I think it was in the mid 70s. I was like 12, 13, but I was with my grandparents. I think if I remember correctly, the girls went with my mom, and my brother went with my father. So that was separated. I think it took a while before they all got together again. Maybe it was a few years later. I don't know, but for a while I went through that where I was like, "Why am I not wanted?" And my mother explained it to me, but that was years later. But for a while, I didn't hear anything. And I didn't seek it because I was not self-aware. You know what I mean? Why I wasn't there. It wasn't until years later, if I make any type of sense at all. And then she explained to me, because she gave me her reasons and all that she wasn't ready and all that. And okay, maybe I'll buy that. And she says, "Oh, but I never, don't ever doubt that I didn't love you and all that." I'm like, okay, the explanation was there. It took years and years later, but again, at that time, I wasn't self-aware. Like, why am I sometimes sabotaging some relationships, especially when I was younger, uh, 21, 22, 25, 26, give or take. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow. Well, first of all, kudos to you for becoming aware of that, right? And there's no judgment around not being self-aware. Everybody's on their own journey. It's just that the benefit of having that self-awareness is then you can look at behaviors that you have or behaviors that another person you're involved with, even a friend, right? Coworker, friends.
Yeah.
You can look at those things with a little more maybe detachment or a little more distance maybe instead of like instantly getting triggered maybe by it if it's unconscious. So in the example that you shared with your mom, how did you become aware of that, the impact of that on relationships?
I think it was God, if I remember, I was in maybe my mid to late 30s. Um and I went to a self I guess it was like a personal development class. A mutual friend of mine and somebody else had this is when I was working um at my first job at another hospital, and somebody had sent out like I think it was an email, work email, yeah. And then she said, "Hey, I'm going to this class. It's about self-awareness. I mean, not so it's self-improvement. That's what it was." So anyway, making a long story short, it was like 2 or 3 days. And then I just started realizing, because the teacher there, was saying words that triggered. And I was like, holy shoot. And then things started popping up, and I started thinking about some of the stuff I was doing, and that definitely changed me, because for a while I couldn't say the words "I love you" and mean it. It was just other words. It was just another word in the vocabulary. So
Wow.
being in that 3-day class, right? I think it was Friday through Sunday or Thursday through Sunday. I can't remember how long it was. But anyway, make a long story short, when her having, she had like statements like, "If it's meant to be, it's up to me," and just certain things that just triggered. And then I remember this, I was like, holy shoot, now I know. And I remember talking to my mom afterwards. I'm like, what happened, blah blah blah. But once I knew, I was like, oh, okay, now I know why. It took me to
Mm.
my mid 30s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. I'm trying to remember the exact pinpoint time. But again, that's when I became self aware, around that period of time where I realized, shoot, my mom didn't abandon me. She told me why. She wasn't ready. She was only 16. And my grandparents were willing to help. But then again, like I said, T, as I was getting older, I just saw the developments they went through and I went through, and I was lucky that I got maybe chosen to end up there with my grandparents, because things could have been a lot different.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I love that saying too. If it's meant to be, it's up to me.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what she put up on a wall somewhere. It was like in a almost like a gymnasium type of setting, and they had signs all over. But that's the one particular sign I do remember distinctly. If it's meant to be, it's up to me. Something like that. If it's meant to be, it's
Mm,
up to me. Yeah, something like that. And I was like, wow, okay, I get it now. And that was part of the phrases that triggered a lot of stuff. But that I had inside, and then to be honest with you, then I was able to feel that I could talk to a woman and say, hey, I love you. Even some of my close friends, hey man, you know what? You're my brother. I love you. You know, uh,
mm,
again, unfortunately, for me, I say unfortunately because it took into my 30s, early 40s. But no, the reason why I say that to you, because there was other relationships that maybe it could have worked. You know,
got it.
there was
Yeah.
some relationships that were. I said, wow, you know what? Looking back, I could have married her. I would have loved to have gotten to know her better. But it's as they say, you can't cry over, don't cry over spilled milk. So
Yes, yes. Well,
yeah.
I mean, and hindsight is 2020 if we want to include another cliche. But
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, at least you had that realization. And I think it's probably pretty normal or common to realize that at a later age, late 30s, 40s, maybe 50s. I mean, because it takes kind of going through this a few times. So we've been hearing these dating terms, right? And one of them is ground hogging. And I love the names. I don't know who's come up with these terms, but I think they're great.
And
So
for my audience, what's
yes,
grounds hogging?
ground
Ground hogging.
hogging.
Okay.
Yes. So ground hogging, from what I understand, is dating the same type of person over and over again.
Wow.
So back to the issue or topic of self-awareness, that's where self-awareness can come in to kind of break that pattern. Because the reason why we're doing that is, again, trying to get some need met, maybe trying to heal an old wound, something. So when we bring the
Mm.
self-awareness, like what happened with you, that you had these realizations that, oh my gosh, actually my mom did love me, but she was young and she couldn't take care of me, couldn't take care of us, and you ended up with your grandparents, which actually, like you said, was probably one of the better scenarios.
Yeah.
So once you have that realization, and as you said, once you realize that, you were able to tell people that you love them. So that's where self-awareness could come in, because self-awareness can point us in the direction of either self-healing. So if I'm aware that I have an old wound, I can start to learn how to soothe my inner child.
Mm.
I could start to learn how to provide care and warmth for myself in situations where maybe an old wound comes up, because we can't always rely on other people. Actually, other people really can't heal our wounds. We have
Well,
to
we
do
had
it
to do it
ourselves.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But that being said, we can choose people who are able to be with our feelings, who are able to provide compassion or empathy. But yes, self awareness is key so that we can heal whatever might be getting in the way of having the type of relationship that we want.
Right. So I like some of the key points that we went over or you went over earlier. Definitely know yourself. Uh, Definitely the key. Another one is become self-aware of what's going on with you. And I think that might be the hardest part, Tanya. If you're not self-aware of what's happening within you, around you, because maybe you're just not paying attention or you're just going through life, through the motions. Another thing I like is our behaviors. I think we're the average of, I always think, and I always heard this from my idol Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. um and I've been lucky, grow as I gotten older, I've gotten around certain people, like yourself, and
Thank you.
that besides being myself, but being around people that are are aware, are intelligent, can, make me engage in a conversation than otherwise when I was younger I couldn't, probably hold. So again, it's just being around certain people that I think could trigger your self-awareness. That's how I look at it, because that's what happened to me back in the, when I was, like I said, late 30s, early 40s. Being around certain people just triggered a lot of feelings, some good and some bad. And also, I would say probably the key is healing ourselves.
Yes, yes, yes. And in order to do that, we need to know what it is that needs to be healed. And what's going to be the indicator is particular things that seem to really cause us suffering. So, for example, in the case of feeling abandoned, so I'll speak for myself, um, if the person that I am dating or if the person I'm in a relationship with becomes unavailable, like just shuts down unexpectedly without letting me know, hey, I'm not going to be available or I'm going to be doing something else. And it goes on for longer than 24 hours. In my past experience, that has caused me a lot of suffering. So
Okay.
when the other person shuts down and doesn't share what's going on with them or that they won't be available, that really used to hurt. That really used to hurt me. But
Now,
yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry. So, because I've done that, and I had that done to me, where someone is not emotionally available and all that, and I get it, because it does. You wonder, like, what the hell's going on? Is it possible that the person, um, that might not be sharing their feelings, or they're happy with you or they're not happy with you, you upset them, that maybe is part of not confronting the person. Maybe there's a issue with confronting the person, and telling them, hey, you did this to upset me, or hey, I want to do this instead of that. Could that be a part of the reason why some people just end up holding back too much or too long?
Well, I mean, definitely when it first happens, right? Like the other person doesn't know that this might be a trigger or an issue for you. So
Right.
in that case, just like you said, it is important to communicate, hey, when for example, using nonviolent communication, I feel abandoned or I feel whatever, unloved when you shut down and don't let me know that you're not going to be available. And I mean like not available by phone or whatever it is, like just kind of goes MIA almost, missing in
Ah,
action,
right, right, right,
right?
right.
So,
That's a good one.
yes,
MIA. and,
MIA just
and
goes
that's
MIA.
MIA emotionally,
Yeah, or no, but
or
even
even physically
physically,
too. Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
where the
Okay.
person just like totally becomes is not reachable. Let's put it that way, is not
Right.
reachable
Oh wow.
for whatever reason. Maybe they just need some time to themselves. Whatever it is. So yes, so you're right. When it happens, it is good. It is important to communicate how you feel about that and to make a request, right? Not to blame or shame the other person, but just, I feel this way when you do that. Would you be willing to text me if you're not going to be available or give me some advance notice?
Ah,
Whatever it is. So, yes, communication is
communication.
important.
Okay, we're talking with Tanya V on People on Dating, and today's subject, it's really a good one: self-awareness versus unawareness. Again, if that's a word, I'm pretty sure it is, but I'll come up with a better title. But um, so, and I think, and I always wondered, when someone goes MIA, is it because they're afraid, again, to confront us, to maybe they're, again, and that's why I'm asking you this, is it because they might not feel comfortable in stating how they feel or what they want? Maybe they were triggered by the other person. Maybe they said something and that person got angry or without realizing it, and then the other person shut down. Or if I
Right.
say this, are they going to fly off the handle? Could that be another reason possible?
Yeah, theoretically, I mean, that's not the experience that I had, but sure,
Okay.
theoretically, that could happen. But in that case, that can't become a pattern because if it becomes a pattern, neither one of you are getting your needs met. And presumably that doesn't feel good for either one of you either.
Right.
So yes, I think a person is allowed a pass up to a certain extent, but there comes a point where that's not going to be productive or helpful or loving, to be quite honest.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess if they go MIA too often, then like, hey, either something's going on with that person, or that I'm saying maybe they're having extracurricular activities, or they don't want. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that's a good one because after a while you're gonna say, well, what's going on here? Are we communicating? Are we together? What's going on? So in a certain, okay, so if that happens or when that happens, what's a couple of steps that you might suggest we could do? Should we confront them? Should we, uh, whether through text, email, seems like that's another way of communicating, or
Yeah.
a phone call. What would be maybe one or two steps you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely at least by phone, right?
Which
So
is
that
better because at least you can hear the other person's voice. Yeah.
right, right. If not in person, because then at least hearing the voice, you could hear tone and all that other thing. And I will say, I wouldn't call it confronting the person because that can come across as like, conflict or aggressive.
Okay.
I would just say talking to the person, right? Like
Right.
just letting the person know because the other person may have no idea how you're
Mm.
feeling. No idea. No one's a mind reader. As much as we think
We
that
know
the other
someone. Yeah.
person, yeah,
Yeah.
or that the other person should know not to do this. No, I had somebody say that to me, and I'm like, you know what? That's actually a cop out.
Yeah. We
It's a
can
cop
read
out.
minds. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We can't read minds, and it's a cop out from the other person clearly communicating what the issue is for them or how they're feeling about something.
Right. Wow. It's. I remember one time a friend of mine told me that when it came to relationships, she was saying that a man should know what to do with a woman in terms of uh love making and all that. But I'm like, everybody's different.
Yeah.
I don't know what you like or she likes. That's how you communicate. You talk. I'm like, and she was like, no, no, man should know. I-
Yeah,
Really? I'm
no,
like, no, we're not
I
like I'm making a point, like an analogy, like, yeah,
yes,
we're not a mind readers here.
exactly. And everybody's different. Everybody likes different things.
And no, exactly, exactly. So, so for you, it's like some of the books you read, and we'll get to that later, like some recommendations. Um, so going forward, right? You now that other person becomes aware. You had a conversation, maybe you all right, let's not say confronting, but let's say communicating. And that person now, you say, hey, this is how I feel, what's going on, just tell me what's happening. Once that happens, and the relationship you know turns up again, upward, but then all of a sudden another instance comes where now that person shuts down again. How is that handled now? Okay, now this is the second time in a month, or in a couple of months this has happened. Now I'm not
Yeah.
hearing from this person. um Again,
Yeah.
how aware are we going to become even more?
Right, right. And that's an individual choice, right? Like that may bother me, but it may not bother somebody else.
Right.
So it really boils down to, are you getting your needs met in this relationship? So
Mm,
if you have a need to feel loved, do you feel loved in this relationship? If you have a need for communication, is that happening? Do you have a need? Let's mention the love languages. My love language is quality time, and the second is physical touch. So obviously, the reason why the love languages are important is because we could share with each other the ways that we feel loved. So
right.
since quality time and physical touch are big for me, if I feel like I'm not spending quality time with the person that I'm with, I'll start to feel unloved. I'll start to feel unloved. So then it's up to me to be like, hey, can we spend more time together? Or not just more time, but time where you are present. So that means you're not texting, you're not on the phone, but
Right.
you're fully present with me. So things like that. And that's up to each of us to decide what it is that's important to us in being in a relationship.
You know what? Again, you hit it right on the head. Being present. I love that. Because it's not all about, you know, texting, emailing, Skyping, Zoom. No, let's be in physical contact, you know, somehow. So going forward for you, what from the past relationships that you've been under, you know, that you were, is there something different that you could have done differently, if that
Mm,
makes sense? From, you know, like
yes.
for me, definitely more communication, because I remember, you know, we've been friends for a long time, and you always had told me that's always been big, communicating. And at times I might shut down, um because I realize, is there any communicating with this person, you know, or but I'm assuming, you know, and then there'd be times where I do confront, and then the person doesn't, you know, the subject is changed within seconds. So
Mm.
that's when I said, okay, I'm aware now. This person doesn't want to talk about it. She's dodging the question. She's dodging, you know, she's going from side to side, you know. Anything different you would have done, you know, from I said like today, from yesterday to today? Anything different?
Yeah. Well, I try really not to be big on regret because we are works in progress,
Right,
right? And every relationship does teach us things, but to your point, what I have consciously worked on is being more communicative in relationships. So
right,
being willing to ask for what I want, to ask for what I need. Of course, the other person is able to say yes or no, but at least putting it out there so that I'm not being resentful because this person isn't doing that, or this person isn't doing this. So really being willing to communicate and share what it is that you want and need, because that does give the other person an opportunity to be able to meet those things. And they also have the option to say, yes, I'm okay with that, or no, I'm not okay with that. And vice versa. You know, it's
right.
important for the other person to share also, because ideally, I would presume we both want to be happy and feeling fulfilled and feeling loved in a relationship.
Yeah, well, the key is, you know, having that other person just, you know, communicating with you as well as you doing it with them, you know, because if it's a one-way street, you know,
It's
that
not
it's
going to
not going to
work.
work. Yeah, it's
It's not
definitely
going
not
to
going to
work.
work. So
Yeah.
anyway, first of all, Tanya, I thank you so much for being on People on Dating. This was a definitely a good topic to talk about. And before I let you go, just a couple of more things. Any books you would like to recommend?
Yes. Oh gosh, so many. Well, the book that I recently read that has a great section on relationships is The School of Life. His last name is French, so I'm not going to attempt to say it because I know I will not say it correctly, but it's The School of Life.
The School of Life. Okay.
Yes. There's another great book called We Do, and
We do.
I believe that name is American, so it's Stan Tarkin, or Tarkin, I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll find it on Amazon or something like that, and then I'll put it on the show notes. Okay.
yes, and then there's a classic called Getting the Love That You Want. I believe that's the title. Dr. Hendricks, that's a classic.
Okay.
And then another good book is Conscious Coupling.
Conscience coupling.
Yeah,
Okay.
Conscious
Conscious.
Coupling.
All right, cool. Like I said, I'll definitely put these on the show notes. And if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, what would be the best way?
I do have a website, so you can contact me through my website, tanyavalle.com. Tanyavalle.com.
That's VALLE.
Yes, TANYVALLE.com.
All right, sounds good. Well, again, Tanya, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a great conversation.
No, yes, it was. Thank you so much. All right,
Bye.
bye. Bye. Well, everyone, that was Tanya Valle, and you can find her at tanyavalle.com. That's Tanya, VALLE.com. Tanya, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. Really appreciate it. You can find me on peopleondating.com. That's peopleondating.com. You can also find me on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Please subscribe, leave a review, tell us how we can make this show better. And before I go, guys, just a couple of things. This show is just a conversation, no judgment. I really appreciate you guys listening. Until next time, I'm Will Morales. Have a great day and please stay safe. Bye.